Welcome to the Tool Review channel. Today we're taking a look at another commercial electric product. Now this is their, I believe it's a 7-inch linesman pliers. For those of you not familiar with the commercial electric brand, this is a Home Depot brand, so you can only get it at Home Depot, and 99% of the time the tools are not in the hand tool section. They are in the electrical section, which is a separate section in Home Depot. So to start out the video here, you can see you have a dipped handle. It is like a matte green finish to it. You can also see you have the commercial electric logo laser etched onto the surface of the pliers. And then you can see you have your cutting edge right there as well. And then you have this little cutout divot right here, as if you need to grab onto a screw or a staple. If you needed to pry something out, you're able to do that. You're able to grip onto it and pry it out without the pliers having to slip forward. It should in theory be caught in the back. And then coming to the business end of the tool, as you can see, you have the cutting edge right there. And you have a fairly nice cross hatching design on there, which is going to allow you to get nice grip onto something if you needed to pull it, or if you needed to twist something off. Those teeth are going to be able to grip onto there fairly nice. And you can see the edges are, filed down and, are a little bit sharp. And that is mainly for if you needed to ream out some conduit pipe, or if you wanted to use it on copper pipe as well. It would have to be a pretty large copper pipe, but mostly for conduit pipe, after you cut it, ream it, get those burrs out of the way, so that way if you're pulling wire through there, they don't get stuck and, tear the insulation off. And then coming to the back, as you can see, you got your rivet right there. Now this isn't a high leverage design. Obviously with the small length of the plier, that rivet being back so far from the cutting edge, it is going to be a little bit challenging to cut through thicker gauge wire or thicker material. So that is pretty much it for the detail on the tool. We'll zoom out here and get to some cutting functionality of the tool. So we're going to first start off with some 18 gauge solid wire right here and see how well we can cut through that. And as you can see right there, we are able to cut through it. And again, these cutting edges on there don't seem to be the sharpest to cut through that insulation all the way. As you can see right there, one-handed, you can cut it, but it just doesn't eject the wire. Like most wire strippers, you kind of have to pull it away, but it will cut through that 18 gauge solid wire, no problem whatsoever. So now we're going to bring in some 18 gauge stranded wire and see how well we can cut through that. And again, as you can see right there, it doesn't quite have the ability to cut through the insulation all the way. You kind of have to get that last little bit, but as you can see right there, if you were holding the wire, you could just easily pull it off and it'll do the job as well. So that was the 18 gauge stranded wire. So now we're going to move that out and bring in some solid wire right here. So we got some 14 gauge solid wire right here. I'll go ahead and cut through that. And as you can see, you're able to cut through that 14 gauge solid wire, no problem whatsoever. And it has that nice clicking sound or snapping sound that most lineman pliers make when cutting through material. So now we have some 12 gauge solid wire. We're going to go ahead and cut through that. And as you can see, we are able to cut through it. You definitely have to use a little bit more force, but you can cut through that no problem whatsoever. So we'll go ahead and set that off to the side. And we will bring in some 14 gauge stranded wire right here and see how well we can cut through this. And as you can see, we are able to cut through that 14 gauge stranded wire, no problem whatsoever. As you can see, it cuts through it fairly easily as well. So go ahead and dump that stuff out, and we'll move that wire out of the way. And we'll bring in some 12 gauge stranded wire as well. And we'll go ahead and cut through that. And as you can see right there, you are able to cut through that 12 gauge stranded wire, no problem whatsoever. It cuts through it fairly easily. And you don't really have to use that much force, but I'm assuming these next few wires we're going to have to use a little bit more force than all the rest. This is some 10 gauge stranded wire right here. So we'll go ahead and get the wires stuck out in the jaws, and we'll go ahead and cut through this 10 gauge. As you can see right there, you are able to cut through it, but you do have to use a lot more force than all the other ones. But you can cut through the 10 gauge stranded wire. So now we're going to bring in some thermostat 18.5 thermostat wire and see how well we can cut through that. And as you can see, you are able to cut through that, but you definitely have to use a little bit more force. Again, you're obviously cutting through more wires, but as you can see, you are able to cut through that no problem whatsoever. So go ahead and put that off to the side. Now, I'm assuming these next two, which are both Romex wires, so we got 14.2 and 12.2, are going to be a struggle to cut through since, it's not a high leverage design and you don't really have that much, you don't have the length of the handles in your favor. So go ahead and put that in there and see how well we can cut through that. And as you can see, definitely have to use a little bit of force to get through it, but you are able to get through it. Probably not the most ideal thing to be cutting this Romex wire with, but they will get through the 14.2 Romex wire, no problem. You just have to use a little bit of force. Now, I'm assuming this 12.2, I'm going to have to use two hands here to get through it, because I don't think I'm going to be able to get through it with one hand, or I am going to be able to get through it with one hand, but you definitely have to use quite a bit of force to get through it, and it does kind of hurt your hand when you're squeezing to get through it. As you can see, kind of have to use two hands to get through that 12-2 with ground Romex wire, so probably not the most ideal thing to be using when working with Romex wire, but as you can see, they are able to cut through that Romex wire, but like I said, probably not the most ideal thing to be cutting Romex wire with. So now we're going to bring in our final test, which is something I like to do with almost all linesman pliers, is to see how well they can strip wire. And it's mainly the larger gauges of wire, so we'll go ahead and spin that wire around in those knives and see if we can strip this wire. So go ahead, spin it around a few times and see if we can pull off that insulation. And as you can see, you are able to strip the insulation off the wire, and I don't believe there is any damage done to the wire as well. So go ahead and cut that guy off. As you can see, you're able to do that no problem. So overall, these are definitely a nice pair of linesman pliers for, I would say, someone who has either a low budget or is just entering the trade. Definitely don't think I would use these professionally. There's definitely a lot better options out there. Yes, they're going to be a little bit more pricier than these. I believe these are like $10, $15, something like that. And a good pair of lineman pliers, I believe, starts at like $30, $35. So if you're starting out in the trade, or if you're a homeowner and you're not really going to be using these that often, but you want a nice set of pliers, these probably are going to be for you. Like I said, they're not going to be in the hand tool section or by any of the other tools in Home Depot in the two tool aisles they have. Generally, the commercial electric stuff is over by the electrical section, just kind of like the Klein tools. So you just kind of have to head over there and see what your local Home Depot has. Now, I will leave a link in the description to Home Depot's website. That'll take you right on over to this product page, and you can enter your store number or enter your zip code, and it'll pull up all the stores around you that have this tool in stock. Or if you want to order it online, you can go ahead and do so as well. But that's all I have for this video. So if you are new to the channel and you want to see more content like this, please consider hitting that subscribe button. And if you did enjoy the video, please consider giving it a thumbs up as well. But that's all I have for this video, so thank you for watching, and stay tuned for the next video to be uploaded.